talk to you for a few minutes about our Cyber Symposium and the Center of Academic Excellence, CAE2Y, for cyber defense. Foresight Tech was designated as a Center of Academic Excellence, CAE2Y, cyber defense, in May 2015. And so it's almost a year now, and we have been just working with the CAE designation to do some wonderful things in the community, for our students, and with industry. I'm not going to talk a lot about those things, but I do want to talk about how we got to this point. The CAE designation is only given to education industry that map to the knowledge units presented by the National Security Agency. This is a rigorous process, and as I said, it took almost a year, and we had a team of people that worked towards this designation. There's many benefits for our students. Our students are realizing those benefits to the community and industry at large. So what we had to do is we had to take our curriculum, our cybersecurity information system curriculum, and we had to make sure it mapped to the NSA standards, a guideline that said, okay, if you're teaching this, if you're doing this, it has to be this. And so, of course, they had external reviewers, internal reviewers, and it was a process. And we are very happy to say that we passed that process. We have Lynn Clark and Karen Lusinger from the NSA, and they'll talk more about that designation, what that means to Foresight Tech, what it means to the community, what it means to our students. Talk about a new initiative from the White House, and I'm not going to steal her thunder, so I'll let her do that. But before I get started, I would like to introduce our president, Foresight Technical Community College, Dr. Gary Green. Dr. Green, welcome.
Thanks, Deanne, and welcome to everyone. On behalf of our board, our faculty, our staff, and especially our students, I want to welcome each and every one of you. I want to thank all of our community guests for being here. I know a number of our business partners in the community and other partners in the community are here, and it's very important that we were able to connect with you on this important topic of information system security, cybersecurity. It's an important topic for all of us, and we all have, I think, our stories to tell about some of the issues and concerns we've had about the security of our data. We're honored to have our guest from the NSA, Lynn Clark, and Karen Duschner. Is that correct, Karen? I get pretty close? But thank you all so much for being. We're looking forward to hearing from you going forward. And I want to thank Deanne Wesley. Deanne, which is our chair for business and information, for information technology, and also program coordinator for our IT security program. And Deanne, thank you for all the work that went into putting this event together and for bringing all of these special guests together today. It's my honor, really, to introduce our lead speaker today. We're honored to have Lynn Clark with us. Lynn is the chief of National Information Assurance Education and Training Program. I tried to get all that out without hanging up. And she directs the Administration for National Security Administration in the Department of Homeland Security's Centers for Academic Excellence and Cyber Defense program, the program that Deanne referred to. Prior to this assignment, Ms. Clark was the Deputy Chief for Workforce Resources, Education and Development in NSA's Information Assurance Directorate. This included her responsibility for the IED's hiring and intern programs, in addition to education and professional development for the personnel there. Ms. Clark is a retired lieutenant colonel with United States Air Force and was formerly assigned to the Interagency Operational Security Support Staff. I got that one out. And there she acted as the OPSEC Training and Program Development Council for all federal agencies and departments with a national security mission. And we are very honored and pleased to have Lynn at Forsyth Tech today. Thank you. Welcome.
So good morning. I'm really pleased to be here because we're working so hard to try and get 2Ys more engaged in what we're doing with both our program and the future of cybersecurity for the nation, because we think you have a very, very important role to play. So just a little bit of background for those of you that may not be so familiar with what we do with the CAE program. NSA started the program about 20 years ago, going on 20 years ago. And originally, what we were trying to do was to work with colleges so that the skills that we needed for our own agency were being developed in college students. And then as the world evolved and 9/11 happened and DHS came into being, it became apparent more and more that when we say protecting the nation, we really have to protect more than our own classified systems. And we have to be engaged in helping look forward to how we can protect the nation and all of the nation's systems, because it doesn't matter whether it's critical infrastructure, whether we're trying to keep the electricity flowing or the heat on, or make sure that our biggest companies and our smallest companies are able to develop and be robust. That all goes into making the nation safe. So what we're about today is we are in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, and we are trying to address how we can help develop academia in this subject area so that as the nation grows and the need for workers continues to grow and evolve, we can make sure that we're providing the kinds of people that are going to be the key to helping keep everything we have in this nation safe, our people, our industry, and our government. So one of the interesting things about this program is that we started out looking at just the academic piece, but as the nation has evolved and as the politics have evolved and companies like Burning Glass, if you're not familiar with Burning Glass, go out and look on the internet. Burning Glass does a lot of work with what the needs are in the workforce and where the jobs are, where we need to focus our efforts, where things are evolving. And they help us with data like what is the environment today, what do we expect the environment to grow towards. They are working with the National Initiative on Cybersecurity Education to provide a map that will help us look at what we need to do as we move forward with these efforts. But what we're doing now is trying to evolve from just looking at academics to looking at what do we all need to be doing to help the workforce evolve. It's really becoming, Congress's interest right now is how can we help the workforce become what it needs to be. So when we go out and talk to professors tend to be focused on, I'm here to educate people. I'm not necessarily here to prepare them for a job. My argument to that is you are there to prepare them for a career. Having put 2 children through college already, had I made that investment and had a professor tell me they didn't care what my son or daughter was going to do when they graduate out of school, I might have changed schools, okay? Because my investment was into helping them prepare themselves for a career when they left school. Now, whether they choose to pursue it or not is their problem, but I think as a parent and as educators, we're here to help them become prepared, ready to go out and do those things. So in this case, we're talking about cybersecurity education, and what our program is really evolving to is how can we ensure, from the federal government's point of view, that that we are providing an environment where the workforce we need can be educated and can evolve and can contribute to the future, right? So that's what 2Ys have traditionally been all about. In our program, we have everything from, we start with community colleges, but we grow up through PhDs. So in our program, schools can have 3 different designations. And that helps us put into categories schools that are doing research in cybersecurity and producing PhD candidates, schools that have professional graduate programs at the master's level, 4-year schools, and 2Y schools. And so in the past, we've been looking at each of them in their own pile, right? So we have all the 2Y schools, we have the 4Y and the graduate programs, we have the research, you know, the furthest end in the education spectrum. But what we're beginning to look at now is how can we get all of those different schools to work together. So, for instance, at UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore campus, they have a grant to do research, but they're including 2Y students in their research programs. So they're in our school, they're producing PhDs, but they're looking at how they can help engage students at the 2Y level so that they're inspired to go on and finish their careers, because we need people at all levels. You know, whatever level of education our students aspire to, there will be work for them in cybersecurity when they leave school. And we really need to be looking at, especially here at the 2Ys, creative ways that we can both help students go directly into the workforce, provide pathways where they can go on to higher education if that's what they aspire to do. Whether they do it as soon as they leave here or work for a couple of years, depending on their life situation and how they can go on, right? So those are the kinds of things that we're looking forward to in the next year or so in our program. Everybody in this field knows that the jobs are going to outpace the students. The jobs are going to outpace the number of students that we're producing, right? So there's always going to be a need. One of the interesting challenges, having not spent my career in academia, when I went the last fall and started talking to schools about if we were to ask you to broaden your pipeline, if we were to work with NICE, the National Initiative on Cybersecurity Education, and try and accelerate our output, what kinds of challenges do you have? And what do you think the very first thing they said to me? Almost every one of them. Those of you that work here at Forsyth. Any ideas? Well, we need the students. We need students who are prepared to come in and work in this environment. But what they've all said is, we need educators. Okay, so think about this for a minute. I just said, anybody that graduates can go get a pretty good job, right? Our problem is when those students graduate, we need some of them to come back and teach, right? Every school that I've talked to in our program that has openings is finding it very difficult to fill those openings. It takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to find qualified educators to help either establish or broaden a program. So that's one of the first things that we're going to look at under the new president's initiative, the CNAP, the Cybersecurity National Action Plan, right? How can we produce educators? Now, there's all kinds of ideas, and we're partnering with the National Science Foundation, looking at how can we provide scholarships. Their Scholarship for Service program helps students pay for school, but then they owe a certain amount of time back either to the government or to whatever they've signed up for. So if you took a scholarship to become a cybersecurity educator, then you would owe X number of years back, depending on how much of a scholarship you took. And that's just one kind of idea. So we're starting to cast about in the community and see how we can help to address that. We're also working on various committees with the Office of Personnel Management, which is the organization in the federal government that defines how we use cybersecurity experts in government jobs. It's probably no news to you that it's very hard to graduate with a 2-year degree and get a job with the federal government. Part of that is because the way the jobs are described and the rules that are proscribed by OPM for how we place people in jobs. Almost all of them, and Burning Glass, if you go back to Burning Glass and go out and look, they published a study about 6 months ago that said 80% of the jobs in cybersecurity require a minimum of a bachelor's, okay? So that's something your students are going to be up against. Now, we are working with OPM to try and redefine that, because I adamantly believe that the quality of students that are being produced at 2Y schools now should be able to qualify for some of those government jobs, and we're going to look at how those that can be reclassified so that we can do that. But that's going to take several years to get there. The harsh reality is that the students you're graduating in the next few years are going to have to deal with that. Now, that's not to say that there aren't jobs, because industry is well in advance of us on this. Industry recognizes talent, and industry will hire people in, and then if they need them to be more educated, they will help pay for them to go back to school, which, by the way, the government will do if you can manage to find a job that will take a 2Y degree. Now, the other side of that is that we found that state and local governments are much more likely to hire 2Ys than the federal government is. So there's good news on that front. But in the meantime, one of the other things I see evolving as I travel around is there are consortiums of small businesses that are banding together to work with 2Ys, and I don't know if you're doing that down here, where they have actually worked out a program at Houston in specifics. There is a consortium of small businesses that work together with the 2Y schools to provide jobs for students that are graduating. They support them to go on in their more advanced degrees, and as they develop experience and education, they move into bigger jobs in bigger companies. And the small businesses have, by that method, identified a pipeline for the people they need, right? And they're contributing to the growth of the career field because they're helping to develop students as they come along. And it's worked very well for everyone involved. So, we're going around the country looking for those kinds of opportunities and those kinds of programs where we can share lessons learned and help people begin to evolve and build programs. So we're very interested in the pipeline. One of the unique positions I think you all are in as 2Y schools is that you can help us look at developing a pipeline coming out of the high schools where you can use your relationships with your regional high schools. You can use the flexibility that the state has given you in terms of helping them get their degrees and leave high school already with higher education under their belt, which in turn makes them eligible for a lot more scholarships than would be available to them coming immediately out of high school. The National Science Foundation SFS scholarship program is in the process of expanding and has started this year, although it's not been well advertised. They will offer scholarships to second-year associate's degree students who are in programs that will proceed on to four-year degrees. So because their business is about expanding the pipeline of government employees, right, they're looking for people who are going for those four-year degrees because they recognize that there aren't that many government requirements below a bachelor's. But those are still a segment of your 2Y schools students that can take advantage of that, especially if they're already planning to go on from here to a four-year program. So we're looking at one of the biggest things that the 2Ys can do to help us with this program is to, in the summers, work with the high school students and run camp programs or run other programs that will help those students get interested in cybersecurity, maybe learn a little bit about it, interest them. I was at a camp last year. They had 22 students in the camp program, and about a fourth of those went back, finished their senior year, and they started this year in the 2Y that hosted the camp. So it not only helps us get students into the 2Ys, like you were saying, pipeline, but it helps engage those students. So we're looking at if CNAP comes to fruition. CNAP is part of the president's budget. that was announced on the 7th of February this year. And you can go out and look at, you can search on CNAP, C-N-A-P, you can search on Cybersecurity National Action Plan. And in there, paragraph 7 talks specifically about our program and the National Science Foundation Scholarship for Service program, and allocates $62 million to our program and the scholarship program for broadening the pipeline, developing the program. Most of that money that comes to us under CNAP, we will turn around and farm out to the schools in our program across the board for specific problems that we want to see addressed in the community. One of those is developing a pipeline for coming up with a model program that we can build a national program off of that will help us identify how we can help get high school students into, one, interested in cybersecurity, which involves marketing, which involves talking to counselors, which involves engaging students, and then helping them get into the 2Y school and then go on to more advanced degrees if that's within their ability and desire. Things like mentoring, helping high school students. We've got several of our CAEs that are specifically targeting Title X communities and Title X schools and coming up with camp programs for the summer where they can get those kids out. Last year, how many were in Tony's? Okay, one of our schools partnered with the Girl Scouts of America. They got Google and Facebook involved, and Microsoft, were they there too? And they had 200 Title X girls go through a one-week camp with them. And those girls came in not only knowing anything about cyber, but they were engaged, they were involved in gangs. There were all kinds of problems you can imagine dealing with those girls. During the camp, the girls built a computer. It was a, what do they call it? Raspberry Pi, right? Let them take it home, which meant most of them now had access that they never had before, right? They each built a drone. They flew the drone. They hacked everyone else's drones. They fixed their drones, okay? It was so exciting to watch that whole thing evolve. They put them on a ropes course. I mean, I had goosebumps watching these kids because these kids that came out of Title X schools that were living under the threat of gangs and getting involved in gangs, and they're up on the ropes 20, 30 feet off the ground, helping each other get through, learning all about teamwork and commitment and those kinds of things that they'd never had a chance to be exposed to before. Now, that happened to be a 4-year school, but for this summer's camps, we were actually able to fund all of the 2Ys that applied to help with the camp. So there is big emphasis on what you all are down here trying to do, both from our program, from our agency, from DHS, and at the national level, Congress is giving us money. So I get to announce, you all are the first ones to hear this. It was totally serendipitous. I don't know what happened, but $1 million fell out of the sky about 2 weeks ago and landed on us, okay? And it said, go spend this on the 2Ys, all right? So today, I hope, I have to get on the phone when we're done here and find out if they got it out, but today, if not today, the first of next week, keep your eyes out. We'll be putting out a BAA, whatever BAA stands for. But essentially, it's we've got money, and this is what we want to spend on. If you want to help us spend it, send a plan, okay? And we're looking for schools that can help us be regional centers, that can help us in this effort in your state, in your community, maybe in a trio of states, depending on how much there is to do. We want to build more 2Ys. We want to help develop faculty. We want to think about how we can begin to build pipelines for the high school kids, okay? And we don't want to forget those that are retraining, because there's a huge resource in people that are leaving the military and leaving jobs that are defined by an end date, like retiring police, retiring fire. A lot of state and local service people find themselves early in their life looking for a second career. And if we can tap into those people, I was 45 before I ever went to work for NSA. You know, this is my third career, so, you know, it can be done, right? So I want to commend what you all are doing here, because your program really is taking the forefront and helping us be leaders in this effort. We work with Deanna. We've invited Deanna to be on a couple of national committees that we're working on to help us define where we need to go in the future. We really look to you all for leadership in this area, and we hope to broaden that partnership. There's a lot of great opportunities coming up in the very near future. So let me just wrap up with, I think if we can be inclusive, if we can look from what's going on here, find ways that the 2 Ys and the 4 Ys can collaborate, help our young professionals, the people that are coming through your programs, envision what a career in cybersecurity looks like. There is such variety out there, and this is just the beginning. I'm going to retire long before cybersecurity as a profession is going to be defined. And it's such an exciting opportunity to be in on the ground floor and help be part of what we're setting as requirements, what we're expecting of our educators, how challenging our young people to come in and find a way and find a path and contribute their talents to what we're trying to do. And my whole life, my whole professional adult career has been about defending the nation. And this is really an important part of that. We have to help everyone, from the common user to the professional, understand the value of the information they handle every day and how important it is to understand that and to find ways to protect it. Our children have grown up in a culture where information is a commodity that's shared openly and freely, and when they get to their adult lives and they have to work in business or they have to work in government, it's really a challenge for them to understand that some things you just can't share with everyone if you want to be successful in your endeavors. The world is not all full of nice people. You know, if it was, everything would be so much easier. But most of us that have been around for a while understand that that's just not the case. And we have to be able to protect the things that are dear to us. So what you're about down here is the foundation of making all of that happen. I applaud you for what you're doing. Your job is much tougher than mine. And let us know. We want to be partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. You make a really important point, I think, and that is this is about defending the nation. This is about defending our state. This is about defending our communities, our economy. So this is extremely important work that we're doing here at Forsyth Tech, that we're doing in partnership with NSA and Homeland Security and other agencies across the federal system, that we're doing with our state and others. And it's not just about jobs, though that's important, but there's something bigger than all of us individually about this work. So thank you very much for those comments. And I forgot to mention when we started, welcome to the new regional center that we will be looking at, certainly with some of the material and the release that she announced today. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you James Brown. James is a PhD candidate in computer science with a concentration in information assurance. He recently graduated from A&T with a bachelor's degree in computer science, and he's recipient of the NSF Cyber Defender Scholarship for Service, so one of those opportunities to support students that we have in the federal system to build cybersecurity across the country. He works as a research assistant in the Center for Advanced Studies in Identity Science with Dr. Jerry Dozier, who is one of our partners in this at North Carolina A&T. Again, one of those 2-year college to 4-year university partnerships that we have. James is working on several publications related to evolutionary computation and Android malware. Wow. James, welcome. Pleasure to have you with us. Thanks.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I am glad to be here, and I will be speaking about CASES, which is the Center for Academic Advanced Studies in Identity Science, which we have partnered with Forsyth Tech. And originally, CASES was a Center for Academic Excellence in Information Assurance and Cybersecurity from the NSA. So that's where we started. I will be talking about CASES, where we were from 2008, which is when we started, to 2014, and I'll be talking about where we are going from 2014 to the present. And we were blessed with a $3 million grant to start the, let me get through this, Applied Identity Modeling and Data Science Lab, the AIMDOS Lab, which is focused in cybersecurity, data science, and identity science. And I'll also be talking about a in-house tool we developed called MalwareCat, which is a tool to detect malicious web pages based solely off their HTML code. So in our department, we have two cybersecurity-based research centers. The first one is the Center for Cyber Defense, which is a NSA DHS Center of Academic Excellence in Information Assurance and Cybersecurity. And this is directed by Dorothy Yuan, and it's funded by the NSA, the NSF, the National Nuclear Security Administration, the Army Research Lab, and the Army Research Office. And the second research center is the Center for Advanced Studies in Identity Science, the CASES Lab, which I'm a part of both, having received the NSF Scholarship for Service. So I'm part of the Center for Cyber Defense, and I work within the CASES Lab. And we're applying artificial and computational intelligence to solve problems related to identity. This is directed by Dr. Jerry Vernon Dozier, and it's also funded by the NSF, the NNSA, yes, Army Research Lab, the Army Research Office, the FBI, Clarkson Aerospace, and the Department of Defense. So where we were, we started off with genetic and evolutionary feature extraction. So what we're doing is extracting the most salient features from our data set through evolution. And we applied this to a couple different problems. The first one you see on the right is the facial recognition. And the traditional method is the LBP method, where you have equal size slices of the image. What we did was evolve the position and the size of these slices, which increased accuracy and also decreased our computational complexity. Down at the bottom left, what we're doing here is tracking how you type. So everyone has the same username and password, but we're tracking how you type it and identifying you based off those characteristics. And then in the middle right there, we've reached about 80% accuracy on mouse activity alone, so at identifying you. So originally, CASES was composed of two separate labs, the Applied Computational Intelligence Lab and the Cyber Identity and Biometric Lab. And these were both at North Carolina A&T. And there were only three professors, Jerry Dozier, Kelvin Bryan, and Kaushik Roy. Where we are going. So currently, CASES is focused on three areas: identity modeling, biometrics-inspired analytics and ID, and cyber ID protection and privacy. So identity modeling, like I said before, we're trying to create a computational framework for your identity. Biometrics-inspired analytics and ID, we're using your biometrics to create those identities, and based off your biometrics, identify you and create passwords and such like that based off your biometrics. And then the cyber ID protection and privacy, that's where our cyber analysis and advisement tools come into play, so our CATs. We have Malware Cat, Author Cat, and Mobile Cat. Malware Cat is what I said before, the HTML malware detection. The Author Cat, what we're trying to do here is either anonymize you or identify you based off your writing. So what we have now, we only need 8 sentences to identify you based off your writing. And what we're developing is a tool to anonymize yourself based off that. So what we're doing is we're coming up with different techniques to either imitate somebody, which is author imitation, or attempt to write not like yourself. So not necessarily imitating somebody else, but just not writing like yourself. And the last one is my focus, which is malicious mobile apps, which is Mobile Cat. And based off of communication architectures from the apps, we are identifying malicious Android apps. And we are working in partnership with Foresight Tech this summer. We're going to have 3 interns, which is Claudia Bailey, Brittany Rominger, and Nahaya Carter. And they'll be working on the Malware Cat ++, where we're porting that communication architecture and analysis to Malware Cat. And they'll be working with another PhD student, Shaban Day, myself, and another master's student, Lowell Bass. So where we are going, now Cases is composed of 5 separate labs: the Applied Computation Intelligence Lab, Cyber Identity and Biometric Lab, the Secure and Usable Social Media and Networks Lab, the Raven Lab, which is headed by Dr. Al Esterline, and AIMDOS, as I said before. So as you can see, AIMDOS and Cases in general is now composed of a multitude of different professors and different universities and departments within our university. So Maud Anwar, which is my another one of my advisors, he heads the Sussman Lab. Dan Limbrick, Chris Doss, Kaushik Roy, Jerry Dozier, Tanya Smith-Jackson, Al Esterline, Astrid Todd from GTCC, Kosi Ida from Math, Deanne Wesley from FTCC, John Kelly, Elva Jones from WSSU, and Yogeta Desai from ISC. And here we have weekly AIMDOS meetings every Friday at 4. And if you can see in the bottom left, Dan Wesley's head right there. So yes, we are collaborating, we are talking, we are developing good things within that lab. And so here's Malware Cat. What we were trying to do was we have 2 problems. So source identification. If we know somebody, so this is where we applied author identification to Malware Cat. So if we know you've written malicious code before, and this looks like something that you've written, it's probably going to be malicious as well. And then association with malware, so how close a malicious sample or a sample looks to malware. So we use 2 separate feature extractors. We use Unigram and Oduvel. Unigram is just the 95 character frequencies. And Oduvel, it extracts 170 different stylometric features. And so we presented a proof of concept to the North Carolina Department of Information Technology at the iCenter. And in attendance is Keith Warner. He's in the kind of beige suit in the back. He's the Chief Information Officer. Maria Thompson, who's in the black suit on the left, the Chief Information Risk Officer. And Albert Moore, he's on the right. You can kind of see a corner of his shirt. He's the IT Security and Compliance Specialist within the Department of IT. And as you can see, for the first result box is for the source identification. So we got up to 60% accuracy with that. And the second box is Android association with malware. We got 91.88% accuracy. And so we've beat 7 commercially available different malware detectors. And only one of those, Google Safe Browsing, uses only HTML code, and they got, I think it's 65%. So here's just a quick screenshot of MalwareCat. On the left, you type in your URL, you put in the search depth that you want to go within that site, and the nearest neighbor. So how many of the closest matches within our data set do you want to see? And if you can see, I don't know if you can, stereotype 1 is the closest match. So unsafe would be, the closest match would be malware, and safe would be the closest match is benign. And on the right, that is a representation of the source identification problem. So the green nodes are the benign samples within our data set. The red nodes are the malicious samples, and the kind of lighter colored nodes, so the lighter blue and the lighter red, those are the samples we extracted from the URL. And the arrows that they're pointing to is the closest match within our data set. And as you can see, Cases has grown over time from a small lab focused real tightly around one subject, and we've grown to a multitude of different researchers in different areas of concentration. And we hope to see the same with Forsyth Tech.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. That's exciting stuff, even to us laymen, and understanding that the kind of work that is going on right here in our community, North Carolina A&T, and we're pleased, as you noted there, that we are a partner with A&T, and I know our students are excited about the opportunity to work with the four-year institution students at A&T. On some of the advanced topics that you're dealing with today. So thank you for coming and talking about that, and thank you for the partnership. And if you expressed to Dr. Dozier and others our appreciation for the partnership that we have for A&T. It's now my pleasure to introduce one of our key state leader in information assurance and information security. Chip Moore is with us today, and Mr. Moore is the state of North Carolina's Chief Information Security Officer. The North Carolina Department of Information Technology provides technology services to state agencies and other government customers across the state, including host and network support, telecommunications, desktop computing, and project management services. And I will say, as a part of the North Carolina Community College system that we are, the relationship, we have that relationship with the new State Department of Information Technology that's very important to us. Mr. Moore holds an undergraduate degree in economics from Hampton-Sydney University and a master's in information security from East Carolina. He was appointed by the governor almost 5 years ago, and he brings 15 years of experience in direct security and over a decade of IT experience in his role as state CIO for security. From his position, Mr. Moore provides oversight of state agency IT projects, manages IT procurement, cybersecurity, business relationships, strategies, and the statewide architecture, and is represented by the 911 Board, the NC Geographic Information Coordinating Council, Criminal Justice Information Network, and such. We're really pleased to have our leader for the state of North Carolina in information security, Chip Moore. Thank you, Chip, for being with us.
Well, thank you very much for the gracious introduction. So, as he said, I am the state's Chief Information Security Officer. I'm going to go through a couple things the state does to kind of give you a background on how we go, and then I hopefully hit on some of the job stuff, which I think you guys probably want to go. See if I can get this going. Nope. Bad answer. All right. Yeah, I was gonna say, should have got more. Oh, here we go. There's that. Oh, nope. Nope. What am I doing? Anybody? I should have got some better instruction.
So you just need to point it Oh, I'm sorry, you just wanted the slideshow presentation?
I missed the mouse. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then just hit the red button?
Yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, here we go. Try it again. All right. Okay. All right, there you go. I'll just do it this way. So here's the state of North Carolina. So we have 3 internet gateways. We're implementing a 4th scattered across the state. We run 10 gig at each of the gateways. We have approximately 3,700 routers that we support, both state and local governments, whoever would like to prescribe our service or subscribe to it. We have probably, this says 1,000 exposed servers. We're probably looking at closer to 2,000 or 3,000 exposed servers. And we do everything. We have about every known technology that you could imagine. We fall under almost every regulation you could imagine, with the possible exception of Sarbanes-Oxley. The state does have something similar called EAGLE. So we have about 64,000 end nodes. Our core applications, we use Office 365. We run the traditional things for threats, web, those type things that we see. It's a very complex organization, as you can imagine. So if you look at, let's talk about the threats for a while. So what you see here is, this was put on by a guy named Dr. Stephen Bucci. So what you see in the lower is low risk, low threat kind of thing, or low danger. Individual hackers and small criminals, because it takes them some time to get there. And then you got the terrorists use the internet, where they end up using it to communicate subversively, to do harm mainly to the United States or others. So then there's cyber espionage. You look at, if you ever go back and study the Iranian nuclear reactors, where they changed the way the centrifuges were working. That goes. Then there's organized crime. You're going further up this food chain. They're actually typically after your money. And then there's nation-state cyber attacks. Stuxnet was one they talked about, and some other things. And then the very top of this, you see Israel listed, but this is actually nation-state cyber-enabled kinetic attacks, which basically says you take down the whole infrastructure, whatever it may be. Could be water, could be sewer, could be internet activity. There have been a couple examples of that have been tracked by federal agencies here. Oops. I go up, wrong. Sorry, I got to go down. So the state has been tracking SSH brute force attacks. It's just it's a simple thing we do. It's not particular. So what you see here is, since 2008 through 2013, you see an uptick. The Chinese are at the very top. They're pumping 50%, and this is our threat detections that we're using. We see that they're hitting us of all the SSH brute force attacks, which are just trying to get access to Unix machines for the most part. They're at about 50%. You see that the United States has gone down. Most everybody else has gone down. I can't tell you why they've gone down, but they're down. But we see a steady rise in the Chinese coming after us. So you look at the action. We talked about this. So there basically is 3 or 4 different ways things are going. So you've got the Asian countries are typically doing espionage, intellectual property, government. Any intellectual property that both universities are working on, there's actually a big push for them to come to the universities before it actually gets into production. Because quite honestly, you guys have a very open environment. You like to share. It's the way you guys are successful, but they also recognize that. Then you've got the former Eastern Soviet bloc, and what they're primarily looking at is fraud and money. They're just flat out in for it for the money, really not into any of the other stuff, selling it. So you see that with the Russians, the organized crimes, they've got botnets where they can go out. And then believe it or not, the Africans are doing a lot of fraud. The Nigerian prince scandal or thing, it really still exists. We see it from time to time, no matter how good our controls are. So let's see some of the issues we see in the state. We have trouble with account managers, 80,000 people that work for the state. Our NCID, which is our state's solution for access and control, we have approximately 750,000 people that use it for a variety of reasons. If you think of, we do everything, DHHS, Health and Human Services, your local things, social services. So we have all that DOT, So we see that patch management is a struggle because you end up, there's an awful lot of machines to patch and you can't, go patch them fast enough. We've seen some examples of telephony denial of service, which sounds really weird, but it's people calling up and saying, you owe me money. If you don't pay me, I'm just going to keep calling you up. While it's a nuisance, it has actually gone into some of the 911 centers, not ever taken down a 911 center, but it's gone. So it becomes more and more because it becomes easier and easier, particularly as things move off traditional analog phones into voice over IP. We've seen limited penetration of ransomware. I can't tell you why. I can't tell you it's accidental. We run the same controls as everybody else. We really haven't seen, it's been more of a nuisance for us. We have lots of open ports we need to change. Lots of legacy systems. The state is not necessarily on the leading edge. Most of our systems are very expensive and very old. There's always shadow IT, which are people out trying to help the users do something better. We have, default misconfigured. You can imagine with all those routers and computers, we have lots of routes that go in. And then we need to practice better on the principle of least privileged and role-based because typically people have lots of things that they've got access to. So what do we have underway? I'm not going to read all these. So we've got, we're doing some DLP. We got a new EGRC. We're trying to follow the feds. So those that don't know, continuous diagnostic and mitigation is actually a Homeland Security initiative to get better security as you look at the whole life cycle of assets and things like that. We're looking to do some distributed denial of service. We're putting in web filtering. We're trying to work with information sharing with public-private partnerships. It's very difficult. We actually do a fair amount of work with the Homeland Security and the FBI, which has been good for us. But it's the private's a little harder because nobody really wants to share no matter how much you anonymize your data. And then we're trying to do cyber awareness through outreach and training. So let's talk about cyber workforce development. I hope all y'all know this. So the U.S. News and World Report says that cyber is the eighth best job to have. The growth is phenomenal. The average pay is $91,000. As you see, there are 209,000 cyber jobs that are unfilled. I can tell you from what I do, our hiring, we struggle with hiring cybersecurity folk. It's just not very difficult. Unfortunately, most people want very experienced folk, which is different things. I'm going to try to tell you what I think are ways that you can do better at it. So first is don't do anything stupid. Most of the tools you guys use are both good and bad. Don't try to do anything too out there. Odds are you will get caught because it's amazing amount of log stuff we've got. Just to give you an example, we've got a new security event monitoring tool we're putting in the state. We believe we've currently got it spec'd out for 30,000 events per second through event there's We log an awful lot of stuff. I'm not saying we're going to come after you 2 days from the time you got there, but we do an awful lot of stuff. There's a fine line between probing the internet and pointing out mistakes at companies. I'll tell you, people don't want to hear from you that you found some weakness on their website. We actually tell big vendors all the time they've got compromised systems, and we don't even get a response back. And we know they're under attack or been compromised. They won't even tell us. Make sure you're good at security. And the other thing is, this is very hard when you're young. It takes you a while to figure this out. But while the technology is great and it's ever-changing, it's always exciting, don't ever underestimate the basics. Your policies, the training and awareness programs, because they're important. Because in the end, your end user, will bypass every piece of security that you got, and they will just clean your clock, and that's all it takes. My last thing is, you probably don't want to hear this either, is that since you're in school, and I know how bad it is to be in school, but try to get certified. What I look for as a hiring manager when I'm looking to hire somebody is I want somebody that's got a certification, because to me it says they've gone the extra mile to do whatever it is they've got. There's a variety of certifications you can get. These are actually 3 different vendors. ISC squared is the CISSP, the CISA is ISACA. It's more driven towards audit. GIAC and GSAC are both SANS certifications. They're very expensive, the CISP. These tests, people say, well, it just shows you're a good test taker. So I've taken some of them. I can tell you I may be a good test taker, but you have to really study an awful lot. But I will tell you, when I look for interviews, when we're doing, and we hire pretty regularly, I'm always looking for something that they've got, whether an existing vendor has done it. For both the CISSP and the CISA, you can self-study. You do not have to go. The test is about $500. It's 5-hour test, like 250 questions. It's not any fun by any stretch. But the point of it is that it shows you've got that, and the CISSP will show you a wealth of things if you focus on identity management or penetration testing. Really, security is so much more than that. What I see with our staff is we have Linux people, we have pen testers, we have web people, we have, forensics guys. They all make the team because that's what you end up with. That's what you have to be successful, because when the stuff's hitting the fan, you really don't go to that guy. You got to find the 4 or 5 guys that go. It's very thing. So don't do it. And I will tell you, I think if you do that, almost everybody I've hired has had a CISSP. It's just the way it works, and I think that's it will be worth your time. And even though the CISSP does have some minimum requirements from work, it's okay. They actually have a test you can be. I think it's called an SSCP, which says you've passed the test. I want to get some experience, and once you get that experience, you'll get the CISSP. So it works very well. And they're relatively low cost. And I hope you guys all know, those are the students, that you guys have an ISSA chapter in the triad. Please go to that. It's good for networking. You get your CPEs that you want to do that, and it will help too. And they will help, hopefully go. But I can tell you, mostly what I see in those things, there's one in Raleigh also. The people there want people with experience, which are back to the whole thing. So that's all I got, and I'll take questions at the panel. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Moore. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts from a state perspective. Important information, I think, for all of us to know. At this time, we're gonna set up our panel, and I would invite our panelists to come forward and take their seats, and then I'll introduce the moderator of our panel. So, could our panelists come forward? We got them all lined up down here, so to make it easy. Yeah. I'm really pleased to introduce Rob Roblin. Rob is the Vice President of Enterprise Services at Small Footprint. Rob has 30 years' experience in information technology, holding a PhD in Information Systems and Artificial Intelligence, and he's been Chief Technology Officer for United.com and with United Airlines, and is Vice President of VP for Technical Architecture at GMAC. In 2002, he was named one of the most influential CTOs of the year for his work to establish standard protocols for the travel and hospitality industry with Open Travel Alliance and for personal identification with Liberty Alliance. Dr. Roblin is an active technology leader here in the Triad, is managing director and founder of the Triad Technology Conference, an annual event that aims at providing opportunities for software professionals to share knowledge, learn new technologies and techniques, and to network with others in the field. Please join me in welcoming Rob Roblin, who's going to moderate our panel and introduce our panelists for you. Rob, thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We're probably going to make this a very open panel, so I'm going to read everyone's bios, and as I read the bios, think of questions that you'd like to ask based on what you've heard today and what their bios contain. So I'd like to start at the end there with Karen Leuschner. Did I get that right? Yes, you did. Great. She's the program manager for the National Security Agency's Centers of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education Program. This program is responsible for reviewing educational institutions for possible designation as a Center for Academic Excellence, or CAE, in the field of cyber defense education. Ms. Leuschner's 30-year career within the NSA has included positions as an acquisition specialist, an academic outreach officer, and an editor/writer for the Information Assurance Directorate newsletter. As part of the NSA's Associate Directorate of Training and Education, Ms. Leuschner is also a member of the Academic Outreach Working Group and has been a team lead for the Gen Cyber program, which is promoting the growth of the next generation of K-12 cybersecurity students through summer camps at CAE institutions. Welcome, Karen. Next, we have Tom Kreska. Did I get that right?
Very good.
Great, thanks. Mr. Kreska is currently the Chief Information Officer for the City of Winston-Salem and has served the city for the past 20 years in prior capacities as the Deputy IS Director and the Senior Supervisor of Information Systems. Starting with an Associate's in Applied Science in Data Processing and Bachelor's of Science in Information Systems Management, Mr. Kreska has built an educational foundation for his career. He then proceeded to amass years of industry experience from programming with Bausch & Lomb to database administration with Allied Corporation before moving to Winston-Salem. Mr. Kreska's career, spanning over 30 years in the information systems field, allows him to successfully manage the city's current and future needs. As a result, in 2015, the city of Winston-Salem was ranked as one of the top 10 most technology-advanced cities of this size in America by the eRepublic Center for Digital Government for the 14th year in a row. Welcome, Tom. Chip Moore, whom you've heard from before. You've heard of his bio, so I'm not going to take up time by repeating it. Next, we have Jason Grogan. He currently serves as an ITS Business Relationship Manager with Wake Forest Baptist Health Information Technology and Services Department. In his role, he aids departments in areas of strategic planning, portfolio management, project management, fiscal planning, and support escalations. Recently, Mr. Grogan, who has been adjunct instructor since 2002 at Forsyth Tech through the Davis iTech Center, was able to link interns from Forsyth Technical with his team at Wake Forest, an arrangement that has realized advantages for his company, the students, and the institution. Welcome, Jason. Last but not least, we have Albert Robinson, Jr. He's a Forsyth Tech alum, graduating with an associate's degree in networking technology. Mr. Robinson is currently working in the information technology industry as an IT support specialist at Avid Solutions in Winston-Salem. Mr. Robinson is a member of InfraGuard, a partnership between the FBI and the private sector, and is involved in the local chapter of Spiceworks, a worldwide network of IT professionals. Planning to continue his education by taking additional classes here at Forsyth Tech, Mr. Robinson also wants to pursue his bachelor's degree. A native of Fayetteville, Robinson is married to Pamela Robinson, and they have 3 children, one of which is attending Forsyth Tech Middle College and will graduate valedictorian with an associate's degree. Congratulations. Welcome, everyone. So I'd like to just open the floor right now. If you've got any questions. No questions so far?
I'll get started with one.
Great.
Mr. Moore, you mentioned the importance perhaps of third-party certifications, third-party certifications, CISSP, for example. Would that add extra value to the 2-year associate degree in information security to open up more jobs? Ms. Clark mentioned, and others mentioned the need for a bachelor, sometimes for career progression, but would that add to the value of a 2-year associate degree? And others might comment if you have perspective on that as well.
Did everybody hear the question in the back there? Good, all right.
I think it would. It certainly doesn't. The CISSP is actually, it's a 10 domain. I don't understand why more colleges don't teach it, because there's really nothing wrong with it. You could almost do 1 domain a week. The federal government is heavily invested in the CISSP. They've spent, actually ISC Squared developed one of their certifications around it. I think it's called the CIS or ISSAP, which is a kind of additional thing, because they saw a lack of, oh, you want me to? Okay, thank you. So, is this better? Okay. So, what I'm saying was I think there's a ton of value in teaching a class based around the domains that the ISC Squared will give you. The federal government certainly has done an awful lot with it. They've embraced it, among other certificates. I think what it goes to show you is I applied for a job once, and I'll digress, and I'd worked for about 10 years in IT, and I'd done everything, and I thought I was the best candidate. I applied to IBM, and I talked to one of the hiring guys, and the guy goes, well, you don't really fit into what we've got here. And I go, how can you say, look at all the stuff I've done? But I didn't have any independent thing that said, this is what I do. This is what I did. So by having this certification, you can go with it. And there's certainly vendor certifications. The problem with vendor certifications is unless the vendor you're going to, unless your prospective employer has that certification, then you're stuck finding somebody that has it. And when you're talking the type of world-class or carrier-class stuff that most large vendors have, very specific in what they've got. So yes, I think there's value. I think there's value in teaching, and it's certainly going forth any of it. When I went to my undergraduate or my graduate degree at East Carolina, they actually strongly recommended you had your CCNA, which is a Cisco certified, before starting the curriculum. So yes, I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to say.
I'll add in regards to certification in general, to answer your direct question, yes, definitely a good idea, could only be advantageous. I think for our hiring experience, it shows someone, and this builds kind of what you said on your earlier presentation, someone's willing to go that extra mile, and it shows that step of dedication. There is no substitute for real-life work experience, but you do get a base knowledge regardless of how you study, whether it's to study in general, study specifically to that exam and figure out how to take the exam. You do get a foundational knowledge there that gets you a leg up, and that gets married up with that work experience you start to build fairly quickly.
I have a question for Karen. Karen, can you speak to the benefits of having the designation of CAE and how that benefits the school, the students, and industry at large?
The CAE designation has been really beneficial for schools across the board, especially with two-year schools. They've developed partnerships with four-year schools. Just with speaking about the North Carolina A&T and the collaboration with Forsyth Tech, we found that schools that don't have those relationships that the CAE has brought together, they don't get that kind of relationship, that kind of partnership in high-level projects like that. That also goes to the students. You have students that are going to internship at North Carolina A&T. It's a great, I think it's a great experience for the students that would go on to a four-year degree. It also has given students a seal of approval. I don't know if that's quite the right wording, but that NSA and DHS has approved the curriculum. They've gone through the process to get the designation the school has, so the students get that on their transcripts. I think employers look very highly on that.
So let me carry on with that question then for maybe Tom and Jason, looking at it from a sort of a commercial business standpoint. Does with a designation such as a CAE from the learning institution when students come from, is that important to you?
Yes, I'm sure that when we look at resumes and applications, we certainly look at the certification such as this. If you think about it, especially at a younger age, you're coming out of school, you don't have a lot of work experience, as Mr. Moore just mentioned. You don't have a lot of experience, so what do you have to talk about? And you can show your academic aspirations and what you achieved and your grades, but those certifications as well and your involvement in an outside organization. So yeah, very much so, because that is you at that point in your life. So I would encourage that.
How many? Yes, go ahead.
Related to the certifications for students, most of the certifications are dealing with current technology, but both you and Chip were talking about how large your systems were and have had a large legacy set of systems. How does these new certifications that are upcoming students fit in with maintaining those legacy systems?
We don't have any legacy systems. That's why we're in the top 10.
So almost all the certifications require you to get continuing education credits. and/or be recertified at a later date. I know probably the biggest that you guys all talk about is that we have a big mainframe, relatively large mainframe. We're pulling stuff off. I believe A&T actually has a mainframe. They teach mainframe classes. IBM is in the park. They're great. They help us out. They've got global professional services. But most of the certifications, those that I talked about, are actually they're vendor agnostic. You could still go to, we've got F5s doing load balancing. There's F5 certifications. There's Cisco certifications, but they're fine. But what I found when people say you have a Cisco certification, then the next question is, well, what have you ever worked on at Cisco? And so it's very difficult to say you've worked on this massive router or switch that you never did because you couldn't afford the price. So that's why I like those three particular ones. They're very independent. They're really just very in technology. So the SANS is very technical. I mean, it's very focused on a particular type of security technology and very technical. The CSA is more auditing in the background, the ISAC one. And the CISSP is just, they used to say it's a mile wide and an inch deep. And so it's just, but even a traditional IT person is a lot of security that I just never took, I just always took for granted, and you just don't take it for granted with that particular one.
So how many of you here are students? Okay, so let me ask a question maybe from your perspective to the panel as a whole, and maybe Karen in particular. So Lynn was mentioning before that part of this cybersecurity pipeline, what you're trying to do is to identify a particular set of skills that students should have, that these programs should actually have, in order to come up with a set of skills that you can bring to the marketplace. As a prospective student or someone who's thinking about wanting to be in this field, what should they consider as their interests? What interests should they have to find it an interesting career path to be in the cybersecurity field?
That's a really interesting question. The one thing that we have found with students across the board is that, and you can maybe help out here, students going into cybersecurity have a need to, they want to help. They want to be the people that make a change. They want to be the people that are securing systems across the board, securing computers, securing information. And that's a little bit different than some of the other technology fields that are out there. So we find the cybersecurity, cyber defense students are definitely those students that have a need or a willingness to go the extra mile to be leaders in the field, to be able to help to secure the nation as a whole. I don't know, do you have any? Okay. Does that kind of answer what you were? And the skills. The skills needed, we have a set of knowledge units that were developed through academia and government in partnership, and those core knowledge units are they're basic knowledge that the students need to have, and then they build on that as they go through their programs.
Yep.
Also, being with a technology company, IT, Avid Solutions, we do over 100 trusted partners, and my manager actually told me, hey, he has his CISSP, and I should go for mine or, get certified, the more certs, because our trusted partners like Duke Energy, we do nuclear security and so forth, and that's one reason I got into InfraGard, because it shows another outlet or another exposure of the world first-hand basis. So, you had to go through the background check and so forth. And I'm like, wow. But now you feel that you're taking part of it and you're in that world now. Being a graduate is one thing in the studying, but actually participating in that world and making a difference is a big change.
If I could add just one thing to what Karen said, well, actually two things. But if you're a student or an educator for that matter, and you're trying to understand what the career field is and what the breadth is, there's something called the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. A lot of people call it the NICE framework. It's been out for a couple of years. NIST is looking at actually publishing a publication that's now entering coordination that's going to describe right down to like a position description, all the different jobs that might be available, at least in the government. But it gives you an idea. You can look at the framework, and it talks about knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for a whole wide variety of. It breaks down the workforce in competencies, and it covers everything from forensics to research to secure coding. Everything you could think of that would be even remotely related to cybersecurity. So, I refer a lot of people there because we are in the process of ensuring that the standards we use for designating CAEs matches what's in that framework, and as we develop the program and things evolve, we're going to stay lockstep with that framework. The other thing that I want to point out is that I don't debate at all that we need people with certifications, but this field is so broad that I don't want to dissuade students who have interest in less technical areas of cybersecurity, because we're acutely aware that we need students that understand business, that understand policy, that understand psychology. My degree's in clinical psychology, and I've worked in this field for 30 years. And when Mr. Moore was talking about threats, understanding your threats, understanding what you're up against, what they're willing to do, what their culture allows them to do, how they might, all of that might go into how they might go about attacking you. Understanding all of that, you need a broader educational basis and experiential basis beyond just understanding the technology to be really good at that. So we're currently looking at expanding our knowledge units for our program so that we touch on the less technical areas of expertise that this career field is going to need.
Thank you. So,
I have a question for Albert Robinson. Albert, can you tell us your career pathway at Foresight Tech and how you currently are working at your company today?
Yes. Back in 2013, I was a strategic sourcing analyst for a TE connectivity, purchasing, procurement, and I was there for 15 years, and the RIF came along, the reduction in workforce, and that's when everything hit. And so I had about 6 or 7 months looking for employment, couldn't find anything that was suitable, and so I spoke with my wife, and she said, well, why don't you go back to school? So I qualified for the Workers' Trade Act because my job was relocated outside of the United States. It was relocated to Mexico. So we had 10 individuals in our department, and we had to train our replacements so we wouldn't get our severance package. So I got my severance package, and so my wife and I was talking. She said, well, why don't you go back to school, and finish up in something you like? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Are you supportive of that? So she was supportive, that was the first step. And so I said, okay. And then my daughter, she was in high school in 9th grade, and so she was transferring to Forsyth Tech Middle College. So we started at the same time in January 2014. And after that, I initially entered in CIT, Computer Information Technology, and it was great. And I got in a class with Miss, wow, and she's going to kill me too, but not Miss Miller, but Miss Parker. Yeah, it came to Miss Parker. And I was interested in networking at that time, so I switched to networking. And so it's been a great experience, and I've taken a lot of CIT classes also. My daughter and I, we had a little competition going. She would get the dean's list. Oh, well, yeah, she would get the dean's list, and I would get the dean's list. And then she started getting the president's list, and I was still on the dean's list. And, so they were posting it, and I was like, oh, this is not good, so I need to step up. But very proud of her. Forsyth Tech, Middle College, and Forsyth Tech has done an excellent job supporting us. Like was mentioned, she's graduating, and we will walk together this May. She graduates also, and we'll walk May 12th, and she'll be valedictorian. We're very proud of her. And then after this, I want to continue my education, but I landed a job with Avid Solutions, local company that reached out to Forsyth Tech and asked for referrals. There were 3 of us that was referred by a professor here, and I ended up landing a position, which I was happy to. And the position at Avid is an IT support, IT automation company, but I'm an IT support specialist, and so my job is not just networking, it's a broad spectrum. It's only 2 of us in the IT department. We make up the department. So we support about 180 users. We have 4 companies, one in Brazil, one in Atlanta, and one in Raleigh, in the corporate offices here, which I'm located. But I've already traveled to Atlanta to meet people, meet the company, the team. It's a one-team environment, and that's what I love about the company. I have a mentor when I came aboard. My manager's been great. My hands haven't been tied, put it that way. But, you know, a little bit of access here and there, a lot of read-only, and then the door is constantly opening for me. He's great at what he does. He's been there for 30 years. He's been the only person. So I'm absorbing everything I can from him because he knows, and I love to listen. I'm a listener, and when I can put my input in, I will, but I want to be molded into a successful person at Avid. And they are supportive also of continuing education. So I'm going to continue my education here for the CIT degree. I have 3 more classes, and then after that, I want to do a bachelor's either online at ECU, they have an online program, or actually take some classes local at a local university. Other than that, I think the experience here has been great, and the professors, everyone's been supportive all the way through. Of course, there were always some hiccups up and down, family issues or what have you, but they have been supportive with me all throughout.
Jason, as part of Wake Forest Baptist Health, I understand that you have a similar program where you're bringing in interns from Forsyth Tech. How's that experience been, and how does that work?
I'll provide a little history because roughly 10 years ago, I was working with laboratory support, and the need was there to bring someone in, speaking selfishly from the workplace perspective. You know, we needed some help on some specific tasks, mainly to create some databases for us. So at the time, I had an active class here, and I had targeted a couple of students in the class, and just a general word of advice: coming to class, making good grades is great, but if you're engaged in your class, online or in person or in a hybrid setup, that speaks a lot to your instructor, especially if you've got someone that was like in my situation, that was an adjunct instructor that was actively working in a local company. But that student that I chose to bring in did a great job for us. It was a very informal process. We had him in there probably in a couple of days. We worked out hours with him to come in and work. He did a great job for what we had tasked him to do. But it was almost like it just kind of came and faded. He got a reference from me. I told him, you know, anything that you're applying for, feel free to put me down. So he was able to walk away with a good experience, and he was able to walk away with a good reference and a good company to look at on the resume. Fast forward to just here over the last year or so, and working with Dr. Wesley and her group and the WBL group here at Forsyth Tech, it's much more formalized. Now that means there's more logistical things we need to handle from both Forsyth Tech perspective and an HR internally at our company, but it is worth it because now they coincide directly with the semester. They get check-ins from their representatives at Forsyth Tech. I think they just get a more robust experience where it is paired up with their curriculum. and they have those check-ins. As far as getting them actually into the institution and working, we actually have a summer semester intern that's starting in, I guess it's about 3 weeks, on May 16th, which is going to help us out a lot. But it helps us as various teams at the institution to sit down and map out what are some things we can give this person to do week one, what are some things we can give this person to do a month in, because selfishly it takes a little work off our plate, but also it helps us get a better understanding of our portfolio of work on a team. And we also engage with the student. This is part of that formalized process that is much, much better. I mean, and it's my hat's off to the way Forsyth Tech has done this, is we are really able to pair up specific objectives that match up with their course of study, with their interest in where they want to go in the workforce. So the planning, the staging for this has been a very good experience. We can't wait to get our summer intern in, get his feet on the ground. He's very excited about it. We're excited to have him. It just happened to work out. He was a former student, but I had no idea that I was going to get a former student. But hey, it was when I interviewed him, I was like, hey, a familiar face. So that helped quite a bit. But overall, good program. We really hope to continue it. And having this formalization around it helps us plan it, schedule it, and monitor it.
Thank you. So, Chip and Tom, does the state and the city have internship programs that students could benefit from?
Yeah, we actually have used interns in the last few years. A few from Forsyth Tech worked out very well, and then a couple other local institutions. We're becoming a little bit more formal. I guess going on what Jason was saying is I'm at a point where I need to put together a program so that I'm affording opportunity to all institutions in the city limits for students, but we are working on something along those lines. And I was an intern back in 1976 myself at a 2-year school, and I went to a community college in those days in something called computers because a guidance counselor told me in '74 that's what I should do. Didn't know any better, and I was really waffling, where am I going with my life? And I did a 6-month stint at Niagara Falls Medical Center up in Niagara Falls, New York. And it not only helped me feel better about where I was going and reassure me of the field I was in, but it helped me see the light about where in that field, programming, network, data center, et cetera. So support internships, and we will continue to work and use them once here at Forsyth Tech.
Great.
So being a security intern is interesting. So we did have an intern last year from North Carolina Central. It's difficult, though, because you're going to see an awful lot of stuff, both good and bad, and it's probably stuff people really don't want anybody else to ever say. So as a student, sometimes it's tempting to tell you all the things that they've got. But I think, listening to Jason talk, we need to do a much better job and formalize, because you just don't want to give them just, terrible work to do. But it is in our best interest, because we certainly need some help. The only bad thing I'll say about us is that, y'all are here and we're actually in Raleigh. And our Western data center is actually west of Charlotte, so that probably doesn't help you either. So I think we are. I think my boss's goal is to continue to recruit, and really she wants to go after both young people, veterans, and have interns come in. So I think there'll be opportunities in Raleigh for at least in the IT field. So.
Great, thanks. So Karen, Lynn just mentioned $1 million. How do we get hold of that?
Yeah, the announcement.
No, we want it all.
The announcement will go out today or early next week, and it'll give details on how to apply, what is expected of the. There's usually proposals that have to be submitted, and then there will be an independent review of the proposals, and yeah, a small chunk of that, not $1 million, but. Anything is better than nothing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But how do the grant programs work? How do we find out about them? How do we get hold of them?
Whenever we have money, we will send out, BAA is a broad agency announcement, we'll send out information about any money that we know of that the schools can apply for.
So how does that work? Did you have a question? No? Okay. For these types of grants, are there opportunities for businesses and institutions, academic institutions, to be able to partner to service on one of these grants, on any of these grants?
Usually we don't see businesses partnering. That's certainly something that we do encourage, because we do, schools that partner with businesses that's where a lot more opportunities for internships and employment for students come into play. The BAAs and the grants that we have go directly to an institution. So if you are partnering with a business, that's something that you would have to work out as far as sharing or anything that you would be doing with the business.
Commerce?
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I wasn't sure what you were.
So we don't have every year money that we do grants. We're trying to change that, and Congress is getting much more interested in cybersecurity education. So I think there are programs coming down the road, but we don't have any insight into that. The furthest we can see right now is the potential for the CNAP. So as that progresses through the government, if it looks like that's going to come, we'll have another BAA that we'll be putting out probably this fall that will provide more information on that. So what Karen said before about if there are grants that we know of, we have communication with all of our schools. So we're going to probably go over 200 when we finish this last application cycle. About 40 of those are 2Y schools. If we have a BAA, it goes to all of those schools that are eligible for the grant. So if it's this $1 million is specifically for 2Ys, that BAA will only go to the 2Y schools. The CNAP will go to everyone because there will be something in it for all of the schools, right? But if we know that National Science Foundation is putting out a grant specifically for cybersecurity education, we will notify our schools. When NSA puts out the grant proposal for Gen Cyber, we notify all of our schools, and Gen Cyber is a summer camp that I was talking about earlier for the CAE schools to host camps for high school kids. So we have active communication. The thing I'll clue you into is we have two problems with communications. The first one is schools appoint a POC to be the person we talk to at the school. If the school doesn't tell us they change POCs, then you're probably not getting our notes, right? Because we send to whoever's on our address list. We put notifications. There is, for those of you that are here at Forsyth, we have the CAE community, which we set up last year, which is all of the CAE schools. We also put information on their website, and we use their communication links to put out notifications about funding that may be coming available. NSF has wonderful grant programs for education, so you need to be plugged into what they're doing. But in relation to academia and industry, I would look at things that DHS and the Department of Commerce are doing, because commerce, there is an interagency working group for all of the government people or organizations that are interested in cybersecurity education. And commerce and labor are both part of that committee, and they are actively issuing grants in this arena too. And that's where I would expect to see the business academic relationship going on.
Great. Thank you. So thank you to the panelists for participating. Appreciate your time you spent here. Thank you.
Wow, we've heard a lot today. I just want to thank our panelists, all our distinguished speakers, all our guests, our students, and I just want to say this was better than I expected. We have gotten so many partnerships announcements today. I'm just very proud of what we're doing with our Cybersecurity Center and our CAE. I want to also thank our staff in the Davis iTech Center for assisting with this event, and also for everything they do for our students, because it takes all of us to get our students where they are today. I want to talk a little bit, I'm standing between you and lunch right now, so I just want to take a few more minutes to talk about our cybersecurity programs. We have an information system security 2-year degree for students here at Forsyth Tech, and we also have a cybercrime associate's degree. We have a cyber certificate, and in these programs, we teach students not only concepts, but we teach them tasks. So they are learning the hands-on of how to do vulnerability testing, pen testing, applying security to routers and switches, so hardening systems, forensics investigations. We have been funded, the college has been great to us in Davis iTech, so we have forensics workstation for students that they actually learn how to acquisition hard drives, remove files that is normally you can't get files off a corrupted drive, or if you spill coffee on a drive, how do you get that data? We are able to teach our students how to do that with the forensics workstations. We also have what we call a UFD. This device is a very expensive device, and law enforcement use this device. But this device actually will clone any cell phone. It will get files and pictures and text messages off these devices. Students learn how to do this. So they're getting that practical education of cyber security. We have students that have been acknowledged for their strengths in RFIDs, and in a moment we will bring Lynn up here to present awards to those students. And so students are learning the practical application of security, law, policies, all the technical things as well. And we try to marry that hands-on, that conceptual knowledge they get with industry. So we're sending out a call. So if you're an employer here, you're looking at strengthening your security, or you have you don't have security, we have good students that will be happy to lend you a hand in that effort. So you've heard a lot about our programs, what our students are learning, what they're capable of doing, how the NSA had married all of our curriculum to the criteria, knowledge units, and tasks. And so if you have needs, please give us a call here at Forsyth Tech. We are here to help you with any security need. If you need a student for an internship, possible employment, please give myself a call. I'm Deanne Wesley, the Dean of the college, Pamela Short. Of course, you can call our president, Dr. Green. But give us a call. We're here to help you. Without further ado, I want to bring Lynn Clark back up to the stand so she can present our students with their awards. And I hope that after they get their awards that you would join them outside the auditorium to see their work and ask them some questions about what they've been doing and what they're continuing to strive to do. Thank you. Lynn?
Is there one for each? Okay. So about a month ago, we were all in Dallas for the Women in Cybersecurity Conference. And the purpose of that conference, the conference was started by the National Science Foundation because generally we don't have enough women in this field. And there have been studies, coming from the field of psychology, I understand that brains work differently depending on gender. And there have been studies about the value of having women who tend to look at the broader issues working side by side with men who tend to be more focused on a specific issue, and how complementary those things are. So there are a lot of efforts going on right now to try and encourage women to become active in this field and to pursue degrees in this field. For some reason that no one has explained to me, over the last 15 years, there's been a drop in women going into STEM. So there's an active effort going on to try and encourage girls and women to go into STEM fields, and particularly into cybersecurity. So 2 of your students were recognized. They had a poster competition, and the poster competition was project-oriented, correct? And 2 of your students have been awarded travel grants for attendance at a future conference as winners of the poster competition. So they were recognized at the event, but we wanted to be sure and recognize them here. So I have Brittany Rominger. And Candace Whittaker. Yours has a ribbon on it for some reason. Good careers.
Congratulations to both of you. Both Candace and Brittany are in our cybercrime program here at Foresight Tech. Candace will be graduating in May, but we will have Brittany another year. Let's congratulate both of them again. They actually won first place, and this was we had colleges. I think the conference was 830, something like that, women from all over, from all community college universities, and they came in first place in the community college category for their work on RFID tags. So please see their work in the hall. We also have some work done by our students. We conducted a PC diagnostic clinic about a month ago, and these students repaired 100 PCs for the community, and so we were featured in several articles here in North Carolina, and some of the students are outside to answer any questions you have. So again, thank you so much for coming out today and hearing what we're doing at Foresight Tech with our CAE, industry, and our partners. We thank you so very much. Oh, one last thing. If you are staying for lunch with, been invited to stay for lunch with Dr. Green, Angie has some directions if you need directions to the restaurant. Thank you.